I really think we have to give ourselves permission to experience the full realm of emotions that we're capable of as humans, because I think a lot of times we hide the emotions that we have decided are not good. They are bad. We've attached negative connotations to them. And so we don't want to be that thing. We don't want to be angry, or we don't want to be mad at anyone. We don't want to be depressed. Welcome to this episode of the Joy Act podcast. This is where strategy meets soul and healing after divorce gets real. I'm Dr. Lisa Summerour. In this series, I have been reviewing the 8 stages of the loss cycle that I cover in my award-winning book, Divorce is Not a Destination. Now, this series walks you through the loss cycle, one stage at a time, so you can understand what's happening emotionally, so you can get clarity about what you may be experiencing right now, or what you've already experienced if you've already been through many of these stages. Today, I'm going to be talking about a stage that many people try to avoid, and that's depression. And I get it. Depression is uncomfortable, not just for you, but for everybody around you often. And as much as we want to avoid being depressed, it's a necessary part of the grieving process, just as necessary as any other stage. Now, the problem is depression makes other people uncomfortable. So people around you might want you to snap out of it or cheer up because they don't like seeing you like this. But this is the thing. That may be more about their discomfort and feeling helpless than it is about you and what you need. So pay attention to this episode so you get what you need. I want you to hear me say this very clearly. You are entitled to feel the sadness that comes from loss. You're allowed to be depressed. Now sit with that for a minute. Like literally, find a place and sit with it for a minute, because what you're feeling is likely the thing that is going to ground you in the full reality of what's happening. Okay? So really, find a seat, take a seat, sit down. Before I go on, I want to remind you why I'm doing this series. When I went through my divorces, there were times, several times, when I felt really confused about what I was experiencing, what I was feeling. And I didn't know about the loss cycle initially. So in order to understand what I was experiencing and to know that it was normal, there was a lot of stuff I needed to research and learn. So this series is to help you put words to the emotions that you may be going through, the emotions you may be experiencing, or some you've already come through. And depression, like the other stages of the loss cycle, is part of the process for many people going through divorce. It bears repeating. The stages don't necessarily happen in a linear fashion. In other words, you may not go through them in any particular order. You also might experience depression early on, and then you may move through some other stages and find yourself feeling depressed again. And the reason for that is there's a very good chance that you will experience one or more of the stages more than once. And I'm saying this in every single episode because it's important for you to know that, because it's really easy to have an experience, go through the anger or go through the denial or whatever the stage is, in this case, depression, and then feel like it's lifted and it's gone. And then if it comes back, it throws you for a loop. So understand that the stages can repeat. Okay? Now look, you may have hit the proverbial rock bottom when you realized that your marriage or your relationship, when it was over. And that is something that could cause very deep sadness. And it's real, it's valid, and there's actually a purpose for it. I love how Dr. Kübler-Ross explains it. And Dr. Kübler-Ross wrote a book decades ago, and it was basically on grieving. And she talked about the grief cycle we go through when somebody dies. The loss cycle is a perfect alignment with her grief cycle. But one of the things that she said was depression is actually a way for nature to keep us protected by shutting down the nervous system so that we can adapt to something we don't feel we can handle. I'm going to say that again because I want you to get this. Dr. Kübler-Ross said that depression is nature's way of protecting us so we can adapt to something that we don't otherwise think we can handle. There are real and necessary reasons for depression. I'm not talking about clinical depression that doesn't lift. It never goes away. Okay, I'm not talking about that. I'll touch on that a little bit later. I'm talking about the depression that is a natural part of the grieving process, of the loss cycle. And there's a difference, and it's important for you to understand that difference. So if you're concerned that your depression has gone on too long, that it is interfering with you being able to function day to day, or if you're having thoughts of becoming destructive, you're thinking of hurting yourself or someone else, please go see a doctor, call 911, get the help that you need. A good therapist can help monitor your depression and recommend a doctor if they believe that it's warranted, okay? So only a trained professional can determine whether or not you might even need medication, and that could be very, very helpful. So at the same time, I don't want you to be alarmed because you feel depressed, because you're going through a divorce or you've just gone through one. Or maybe it was a couple years ago, because it could last. So how do you know if what you're feeling is a normal part of you grieving the loss that you've experienced? You've built a successful career, checked all the right boxes, but after divorce, why does it feel like everything is falling apart? Searching for answers online at 2 a.m., it will not bring you peace. Neither will pretending you're fine when inside you're anything but. I remember those feelings, the exhaustion, the anxiety, and the frustration from feeling stuck. It seemed like no matter what I did, I could not figure out a way to move past the pain. If you are dealing with a divorce while you're also managing your career, I've been there. Things didn't get better for me until I stopped waiting for time to heal me and I took control of my own healing. And that's how this came about. That's why I designed the 4 essential steps to creating joy after a difficult divorce. It's time to break the cycle. Imagine waking up feeling lighter, knowing exactly what to do next, and rediscovering your joy, not just surviving, but thriving. In this masterclass, you'll learn the biggest mistakes that keep you stuck in divorce pain, why traditional recovery methods don't always work for high-achieving women, and the 4 essential steps to rebuilding your confidence and joy. Give yourself permission to stop reliving the past and start designing the future you deserve. Register today. Here are a couple of questions that I recommend, and you may have some things that you might want to ask yourself once you realize how this kind of goes. One of the questions is, and these could seem really obvious, but do it anyway. Ask yourself, have I lost something or someone that I once loved, that was an important person in my life, or aspects of your relationship that you really, really treasured? Have you lost those things, and has it impacted you? Another question, am I missing somebody that was a huge part of my life or a huge part of my identity before this divorce happened? And another question, real simple, do I feel like I have a right to be sad? Sometimes I really think we have to give ourselves permission to experience the full realm of emotions that we're capable of as humans, because I think a lot of times we hide the emotions that we have decided are not good. They are bad. We've attached negative connotations to them, and so we don't want to be that thing. We don't want to be angry, or we don't want to be mad at anyone. We don't want to be depressed, okay? These questions that I just shared may seem really simple, but answering those questions could actually help you realize that you do have very good reason to feel the depression that you're experiencing right now. And once you accept that, you can give yourself permission to experience your depression so it can serve its purpose and then leave. Dr. Kübler-Ross said something else too. She suggests that we treat depression like a visitor, even if it's an unwanted guest. She wrote that we should allow the sadness and emptiness to cleanse us and help us explore our loss in its entirety. As we grow stronger, she said, the depression may return from time to time. Remember I told you could repeat a stage? But that's how grief works, is what she said. And when I read that the first time, it made me think of Billie Holiday's song, Good Morning Heartache. If you've never heard it, look up the lyrics to Good Morning Heartache, or better yet, get a version of Billie Holiday singing Good Morning Heartache. Now, if you know the song, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because in the song, she is greeting her heartache like it's an old familiar visitor. She tries to say goodbye to it at night and it comes back in the dawn. By the end of the song, she's resigned to it. She says, might as well get used to you hanging around. Good morning, heartache. Sit down. She invites it to sit down. Now, as weird as it may sound, experiment with inviting the heartache in. Sit with it. Feel everything, because it's part of the process. But here's what I also want you to understand. After you sit with it, go take a walk or exercise, read a book, dance with yourself. I'm not telling you to stop being depressed. I'm suggesting you continue to move, stretch your mind, and live through the depression. So I'm going to share something with you that my mother taught me as a child. It still tickles me. I was probably preteen, maybe teenager, and I was not having a good day. I got up in a bad mood, or something happened and I was in a bad mood. And my mother said, she said, oh, okay, so you seem to be in a bad mood today, this morning. She said, all right. She said, you got 10 minutes to be in this bad mood, and then we got stuff to do today. She literally put a timer on me being in a funky mood. Now, I think I was an adult before I realized that some people literally stay in a bad mood every day, all day, indefinitely. They live there. They set up camp and never leave. They choose bad mood like it's their favorite hat. Here's a way you can make this an exercise for yourself. Set a timer, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You can use my mom's 10 minutes. This is the amount of time that you're going to give yourself permission to devote to experiencing this emotion. Setting the timer is to allow you to engage in the emotion without it consuming you indefinitely, okay? So this is an experiment. This is a test that you can do with yourself. Once that timer goes off, set the emotion aside, set that depression away, and get on with whatever it is you know you needed to do or wanted to do for that day. Now, I want to be clear. I am not telling you that 3, 5, or 10 minutes is all you get to grieve over your entire relationship and everything that's changed because of the relationship ending. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, in any given moment when the depression hits you, when that wave of sadness washes over you, you can give yourself permission to feel it fully and set a time limit on it. That way you don't stuff it down, you don't pretend it's not there, but you also don't let it consume you indefinitely or allow it to consume you at a time or a place when you really don't have time to deal with it. So this could be sitting in your office at work, okay? But you know, if you got a meeting coming up that you can't cancel, 3 to 5 minutes to sit there and go, what am I feeling? This is depression. What's coming up for me? Get your journal out. You guys know how I love journaling. Write down what you're feeling, what the thoughts are, and that could be what you set aside figuratively and literally for later so that you can come back and deal with it. Now, I'll give you something personal. Like, I can remember after, we weren't even divorced yet, it was the separation. It was after we split. We were buying a house together, so it was a lot going on. And I really felt abandoned, and especially because of the circumstances behind it. It just, it went from bad to worse when I started realizing what else was going on that I wasn't aware of. But I remember when I finally moved into the house that I thought was going to be our forever home, where we were going to raise our kids, all of that. It would be like 11:11 at night or 1:11 in the morning. I don't know why those hours. I have a friend who looks at the numbers and numerology and everything, and she told me what that was, and right now I can't remember what it was. But for those of you who look up 111 and what does that mean, because it's something really good. And I would just be walking around my house. I would be walking around my house just horribly depressed, crying, talking out loud to myself, feeling this loneliness, you know, not just being alone, but feeling left, you know? And I could not, in those moments, I could not see the end. Like, I couldn't see how this was going to lift. And so that for me was one of those times, it's happened more than once, where I remember the sadness, that depression, that feeling of not being able to sleep and thinking, okay, you just need to get up and walk around. And what what made it harder was being in a house that we had found, that we were supposed to be moving into, that we were supposed to be living in together. And now I'm in this house by myself with all these bedrooms, and I have to take care of all this stuff myself. And so there was the loss of what I had, and there was also the loss of what I thought I was going to have. You know, so I was mourning a past that actually happened, and I also felt like I was mourning the future that I was never going to have with this person. And that was sad for me. And so what does that look like for you? And some of the things that you may be going through, not wanting to get out of bed, losing interest in things that you used to enjoy, feeling like nothing really matters anymore, isolating yourself from friends and family, because depression can be really isolating. We don't want people to see us like this, and being depressed makes you not want to really be around people. You might experience changes in your appetite. You could be eating more than you normally were eating, or you could not have an appetite at all and you just don't even want to eat. Same thing with sleeping. You could have a hard time waking up. You feel lethargic all the time, or you can't sleep, like me. Feeling empty, numb, hollow inside. That was also what I was feeling. Crying unexpectedly, or not even being able to cry. You know, some people think, oh, well, you know, it's not bothering them because they haven't even cried over it. Well, everybody deals with this kind of thing differently, and your way may be that you just don't cry. Like, it doesn't mean you're not upset. It just doesn't look the way other people think it should look. And it doesn't mean the tears may not come at another time. It may not be what's happening now. So I just want you to understand that whatever way it shows up for you, that's unique to you. Nobody else needs to get it. You could be feeling like you're just going through the motions, you know? And that kind of looks like you could get through the end of a day and sit down and not be able to remember things that you did earlier in the day. Like, you got them done, but you don't remember them. So it's like you're on autopilot, you know? If your thing wasn't on that list and it's come up for you now, write it down so that you can go, oh my gosh, yeah, this is my thing. This is how it shows up for me. Here's something important. Depression during divorce isn't just about missing your spouse. It's about all the losses that are wrapped up in that one big loss. So it's like I just said, you miss, or I was missing the relationship that I actually had been in. And I was also missing the future that we were never going to have, right? So you could be grieving the future that you thought was coming. You could be grieving retirement plans that you dreamt of or you talked about. You could be grieving children or grandchildren that you thought you would be raising together. The house you were going to grow old in, me, right? That was my thing. The identity you had as a married person, being part of a couple, and the other relationships that were in your life because you were a couple, right? Other couples. And those things could change drastically after a divorce. Sometimes it's like friendly fire. It's like there are casualties associated with your divorce that weren't involved in the marriage. People pick sides, and it's hard not to take that personally. I would say this, just understand that sometimes it's really uncomfortable. And I'm not talking about a really negative, contentious breakup where people are pointing fingers and everybody had to take sides like they're going into battle. But just even in a amicable divorce, some people are just really uncomfortable. If they had friends that were theirs before meeting you, then there's a good chance they're going to be focused on spending more time with them than they are with you. But that's not always the case. And you could let time go by and you might be able to reconnect with some of those people. But as far as the depression is concerned, that may be something else that you're mourning, right? In-laws that you actually liked. You could be mourning traditions and holidays that are not going to look the same again. I did a show a couple of years ago on how to handle new holiday traditions after a divorce. Depression in the loss cycle is your heart and mind catching up to the reality of all that you've lost. And that takes time. It takes space, and it takes you giving yourself permission to feel it. So if you're in that space right now, I want you to know you're not broken. You're not being weak. You're not doing this wrong. You're grieving. And grieving is hard. It's hard work. Let me share a couple of things that I think are practical things that you can do if you are in this stage. And if you haven't gotten there yet and you think you might, then this is good for you. First, keep moving. And I know it's hard. I know the couch is calling your name and the bed feels like the safest place in the world, but movement actually can help you. Even if it's just walking around the block, if it's just stretching for 5 minutes at a time, movement shifts the energy in your body and it can help lift some of that heaviness. Another thing, stay connected to people. Depression, like I said earlier, it wants to isolate you. It tells you that nobody wants to hear from you, that you're a burden, that you should just deal with this alone. Don't believe any of that stuff. Don't believe it. Reach out to somebody, a friend, a family member, your therapist, your coach. You don't have to go through this alone, and you shouldn't. The next thing, maintain basic self-care. Now look, I know when you're depressed, basic things like showering, eating regularly, getting dressed, they can feel like monumental tasks. Do them anyway. Not because you feel like it, but because taking care of your physical body sends a message to your mind that you are worth taking care of. Okay? So you want to get that message to your head, even if you're not feeling it. The fourth thing, limit alcohol and other substances. And I know it might be tempting to numb that pain with alcohol or something, but alcohol is a depressant. It will make you depressed. It'll make the depression worse, not better. And just be careful about using any substances to cope during a time like this. Then a fifth thing is use that timer technique that I mentioned earlier. When that wave of sadness hits you, set a timer. And you may laugh at yourself for doing this, or you may roll over and start crying. I don't know, the options are plenty. Give yourself permission to fully feel it for that 3 or 5 or 10 minutes. Cry if you need to cry. Sit in silence. Let it wash over you. And when the timer goes off, take a deep breath and get up. Do something. Make a cup of tea, go take a shower, respond to an email. Do just some small thing that kind of breaks that veil, that energy, shifts that energy for you, okay? One of my girlfriends, when I'm going through something difficult, she'll tell me to get up and go wash my hands. So even that, get up and go really take your time and wash your hands for a minute or so in some warm water. Now, another thing you can do, and I've talked about this in some of the previous episodes on the law cycle, is the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique. When you're feeling overwhelmed by the depression, this technique can help bring you back to your right now, where you are in real time. So quickly, what that one is, you're going to find 5 things that you can see and identify them in the room and describe them to yourself in your head. You're going to find 4 things that you can physically touch. I always recommend that make one of the things you, like give yourself a hug as one of those 4 things. It could be your clothing, the chair you're sitting in. Find 4 things you can physically touch. Listen for 3 things that you can hear. I have the air conditioning on in here right now, so I can hear that air blowing. Listen if it's traffic, whatever it is, listen for 3 things. Then 2 things that you can smell. What scents are you picking up? Is it your perfume or cologne? Is there a candle going? Anything that would let you try to tap into 2 scents. And then 1 thing that you can taste. And you might need to close your eyes and really hone in on that if you haven't eaten in a while, but maybe you still have a taste of something you had or something you've been drinking, you've been sipping on tea or coffee, whatever. That's the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique. And the goal of that is to get your focus back to the moment that you're sitting in right now, instead of being overwhelmed by the weight of everything that you've lost. Okay? I want to take a minute and talk about when depression becomes something more serious. As I said earlier, there's a difference between the depression that's a natural part of a grieving cycle or a grieving process and clinical depression that would warrant you really getting professional help. So I want you to seek help. If your depression has gone on for an extended period of time and it doesn't seem like there's any relief. If you cannot function day to day, you can't work, you're not taking good care of your children, you're not taking care of yourself. If your thoughts are becoming destructive, you're thinking about harming yourself or others, if you are using substances to cope and it's becoming a problem, and you may not think it's a problem, but if you've had someone close to you say, I'm a little concerned about the drinking or whatever it is, then it's a problem, okay? And it's worth getting looked at. It's worth you looking into it. If any of those things are true for you, please reach out to a professional. You can call your doctor, your therapist. If you're in crisis, dial 988. That's the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. You can also text them. 988 is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There is no shame in needing help. There's no shame in medication if that's what a professional recommends. Taking care of your mental health is just as important as taking care of your physical well-being, okay? So I also want to address something that happens often during this stage. People around you may get impatient. They may have been supportive at first, but now they're tired of seeing you sad. They want the old you back. They want you to move on. And that can be really painful. It can make you feel like you're not allowed to grieve, like you're taking too long, like something is wrong if you're still sad. So here is what I want you to know. Your grief doesn't have to match anybody else's timeline. If it's not in the category of what I just mentioned, where your depression has gotten to a place where you need to see a professional, you're just still dealing with and processing through your depression, especially if it's it just happened, the relationship just ended, or you're still processing all of this. It's been a couple of weeks, even a couple of months, and people are just like, yeah, well, I'm just tired of seeing you like that. The people around you may be uncomfortable, but that discomfort is theirs to manage. It is not yours to manage. You're allowed to grieve at your own pace. Now, that doesn't mean that you should use their discomfort as an excuse to stay stuck indefinitely. Like you're like, I'll show them. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, don't let other people's expectations rush you through a process that takes the time that it takes, whatever that time is. Here's something else. Some people just want you to snap out of it. They may be avoiding their own grief about something. So they're struggling seeing you dealing with something when they should be dealing with their own grief and they're not. So your sadness could be triggering something in them that they don't want to deal with. So if you kind of pick up that that might be the case, maybe you're talking to a friend who went through a divorce right before you and they're still in that, I'm going to pretend everything is fine and I'm good, but they can't see you grieving the loss. So you can show them some compassion. I think that's always a good thing. We're probably never going to be wrong by being compassionate and caring. Just don't let their avoidance become yours. Like, don't get sucked into pretending you're fine when you know you're not. And don't make this about them. You be your priority. I like to say it this way. It's do you o'clock. So do you. That's what time it is. Okay? On that note, I want you to do this. I want you to think of one small thing that you can do today to take care of yourself while you're in this stage. Just something small. And maybe it's getting up and taking a shower. Maybe it is rolling out of bed and changing those pajamas that you've been laying in for 3 days, 4 days a week. And just be honest with yourself. If you do need to seek professional help, do that. Do that. So I really hope this episode has benefited you. I hope you have gotten some information out of it that's going to help you. If you got one thing out of this that is going to make this part of the loss cycle for you more bearable or tolerable, or you now understand better what's going on, then I am so thankful and I'm grateful for you being here. I'm going to ask that you subscribe to my channel, and share this episode with somebody if you think they would benefit from hearing it. Remember, depression is a normal part of the loss cycle. It's not a sign of weakness. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's your heart and mind processing the reality of your loss. And as Dr. Kübler-Ross reminds us, It's nature's way of protecting us so we can adapt to something that we feel we might not be able to handle. Remember, divorce is not a destination. Your journey is bigger and brighter than one experience. I'll see you next time.